Hi, and welcome to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. I'm Dupe Witherick, alcohol free wellbeing and transformational coach, and the best selling author of A Cocktail of Clarity, How to Ditch Drinking, Embody a Joyful New Identity, and Thrive Alcohol Free. This podcast will show you that being alcohol-free is not what the traditional narrative says. And even though alcohol is so ingrained in our society that it is okay to give yourself permission to stop drinking if you want to. And you do not have to wait until you hit rock bottom. It is certainly not boring, and I believe ditching drinking is just the start to living an extraordinary life. By getting rid of this one thing, it allows the doors to open to endless possibilities and opportunities. Each week, we will have guests on who are at various stages of the alcohol-free journey, from those who are curious to those who have been alcohol-free for years. We will also have experts on talking about different topics relating to alcohol and beyond. Through these conversations, you will discover what it means to thrive alcohol-free. Enjoy. So welcome, Ashley. How are you doing?
I am doing very well, and I'm very excited to talk to you. Thank you so much. How are you doing?
Oh, you're most welcome. I'm doing really well. I was saying to you earlier, obviously, I've just got back from my whirlwind of a couple of weeks with my Finding Freedom retreat in Bali and then Paris. And so I still feel a little bit like I've crossed a few continents over the past couple of weeks and yeah, trying to get back into the swing of everything. But I'm so delighted that you're here. We're having this conversation because I think it's going to be wonderful. So for people that might not know you, why don't you give a brief introduction as to who you are and how you've ended up on the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast?
So my name is Ashley Paquin. I'm based in the United States. I live in Colorado, so I live in the mountains, the Rocky Mountains. I have, for 17 years, have been working as a coach and retreat host, and we intersected through the women's chapter. So just global networks of women, and I do a lot of work overseas. So and I was particularly drawn to your work, just this idea of being alcohol free. And I know for myself how that's helped me. And so I'm just glad that we get to have this conversation about that and more, of course. But yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. So, well, why don't we start with that conversation then? So, you are alcohol free, which is amazing. And I'd love to hear a bit about, what led you to becoming alcohol free. Maybe talk about your alcohol journey and then we'll go into your alcohol free journey.
Well, I've never been much of a drinker until COVID. And so during COVID, things really changed. At the time, my husband was a CEO of a natural food store. So with 26 locations, he was managing. It was just high stress for him and for me, just being kind of married to an executive who was working through COVID. Anyway, so alcohol became a coping strategy. It became something that we did to try and process what was going on personally, professionally. And I would say that was the height of my drinking and the lowest point for me as a person, just in terms of like my decision making and life moves. And it became a very unhealthy crutch. And so over the last handful of years have really worked to change that and tap some resources so that I can process life and like everything going on and not needing alcohol. And so yeah, it was kind of like a hard, fast master's degree in alcohol and what to do and what not to do, especially. So I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Uh-oh, you're
oh,
muted. Oh, there we are.
absolutely. So, COVID was just, when you look back, it feels so surreal, doesn't it, that we
It
lived in
absolutely
that
does.
time and that everything that went on went on. And you're absolutely
Hmm.
right. I think for a lot of people, the amount of drinking increased during that period. I think it was quite common for people to sort of say, we need a drink, it's going to fix it, that's what's going to help us. And you had all the memes, and you had all the WhatsApp messages and the posts,
Mm-hmm.
and everything sort of like, right, in order to cope with this pandemic that we've got no idea what's going on, let's have a drink. And we were all living at work, not working from home, so it was just intense, wasn't it? And I
It
think
was so intense.
it hit a lot of people. And so you talked about obviously realizing that that was your height of your drinking, but also from a decision making perspective, from a life perspective, it became your lowest point. And
Without
so
question. Yeah.
what was the main then trigger for you to really say enough's enough and this is done?
That's a really good question. So we were living in the Pacific Northwest here in the United States in Oregon, and I think what was the turning point is we decided to leave. We packed everything that we owned in storage and we took off, just find something else, because it just was not a good healthy place. And so in coming to Colorado, we ended up buying two homes, not just one, but two, one to which needed a complete remodel. And at the time, we thought it was a fantastic idea. So this is where the disconnect started to really kind of show up in terms of like sound decision making, sound ways to process transition and change. And it just, I think it was that decision was the lowest point, and I just noticed how awful I felt. Like depression was starting to set in, which is not a normal state for me. It's not something I've normally experienced. So it was kind of this onset of anxiety and depression, and alcohol just felt as if it was fuel. It was just fuel for the fire, and it just was getting worse and worse. And I was arguing with my husband, and that's not normal. And so it was just like compounding things that didn't feel normal. And so we both had to address like what's actually going on here. So in the midst of some really big life changes, we kind of pinpointed what it was, and it was a couple different things, but alcohol largely was the thing that we were like, we have to change this. We have to. So I'm glad, because now we both are on the path. If we drink, if it's for a wedding and it's a glass or two, it's something that is really special and meaningful. It's not just because we can't process our emotions or cope with what's going on. So yeah, I think it was the depression and the anxiety that really turned something on in my brain, that the experience that I was having was not right. Chemically, something was off. And so that started the whole inquiry. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting, because I think when you drink due to try and handle emotions, it makes it a lot worse. And one thing that people think alcohol's doing is it's relieving that stress, anxiety, depression. And what it's
Mm-hmm.
actually doing chemically is
Right.
exacerbating those things. And so it's really common that when people drink, the more they drink, and you all get you get higher tolerance and everything else, but the alcohol itself, no matter how much you drink, can potentially exacerbate any stress, any
Right.
anxiety, any depression that you might be suffering. And so it feels 10 times worse. And I think that when you drink to help you with an emotion, again, that is not the best way to handle it. And we actually did an amazing session on managing emotions at the Finding Freedom retreat, and the ladies just were blown away, because they just hadn't really thought about a lot of this stuff. How do they really
Mm.
process and manage emotions? And obviously when you take alcohol out, you do feel them in them, and you have to really process them a lot more.
That's right.
um but I think, if you can learn to do that, it's a huge skill.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I'm not sure if the connection's gone. Are we still there?
Yes. There was a delay, but I think we're good
Okay.
now. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, cool. I'll edit that out. So I think, yeah, I absolutely get it. I absolutely get that. And so prior to COVID, would you have just said you drank every now and again and it never really affected you, or what was
It was
What was it?
infrequent. It was very infrequent. My family
Mm,
were not drinkers. Never do I remember my family. Maybe
mm,
on Passover, we'd have like sips of wine because it
mm,
was a holy holiday. But prior to COVID, I kind of went on this health kick to see what could be possible. So I'm a recovering former health coach. And I was like, let's see what's possible. And so I kind of started all these fun experiments where I was like, okay, no sugar. Okay, no alcohol. Okay, what about this? And so I did have a stint where I was alcohol free. And then it was like leading up to COVID. So I've not, alcohol it's just not been something that's been in my life. It's not in my family. It's just, so to be so consumed by it it was it was significant. It was absolutely significant. And um yeah, I I can't say it was a good experience, obviously.
mm. Yeah. So, all right. So, tell me then, what happened? Did you then just stop and think that was it, or what happened?
Honestly, Jupe, I hit a very low place in, when was it? It was 2022. So the moving and the drinking and the life changes just started to pile up. And I had hit a very, very low point in my life that was concerning. I was concerned. I was like, I know that this is not normal. And so that I had to start taking things more serious. I had to start taking myself more seriously and my mental health and well-being. And so it was a combination of depression and anxiety, which in a way, hitting that place changed my life for the better, like through and through. So it was kind of like things had to come apart for me to realize that there was another way that I could live and be in the world. And from that experience of things sort of bottoming out, everything has changed. I'm a 180 for the better. And so that's when I started meditating. I mean, I've always meditated, but that's when I was like, okay, I kind of do these experiments where I'm like, well, what else is possible? What is meditation? How can that help me kind of correct chemistry and balance my brain and help me process my emotions? And so yeah, I hit a really, really, really low point. And I knew that and this is just my own personal process, that medication for me it wasn't the solution. It wasn't, another coping strategy. And I was like, I need to get a handle on what is actually happening. So
Mm,
yeah, it was a combination of things, but
yeah.
since then life has done a
Yeah, amazing. So you touched on meditation, and I'd love to obviously explore that a bit more. And the fact that people, and it's really interesting again that you go to the doctors and they will just put you on
on
like
medication.
antidepressants, and the number of people who then stop drinking, and maybe I'm not a doctor, it doesn't necessarily happen to everyone, I'll caveat that, but the number of people that I've seen who have stopped drinking 6 months later actually come off that medication, realizing that actually alcohol was part of the issue, if not
Mm,
a lot of the issue, and they were able to create healthier mechanisms. So yeah, meditation is a really key one.
mhm.
So what's happened since? So you've said it was a full 180. I'd love to hear.
I mean, complete 180. Well, July of 2024, so almost 1 year to the date, I just honestly, I picked up this book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And when I picked up the book, I was like, chapter one, it gave me an explanation as to what could be possible, but there's so much science around our well-being and what we can do with our mind. And so in reading that book, and I've meditated most of my life, different styles of meditation. I co-founded a meditation studio here in the United States. Like I've been in the work, but this was different because I had science to help me prove that what I was doing and how I was doing it had a profound effect physically, mentally, emotionally, chemically, spiritually. And so that for me was the big turning point, was reading the book but having the science to back up what I was doing and why I was doing it. And so the 180 was it was starting to rebalance chemically. So kind of digging my way out of depression and anxiety by working with my brain, doing the meditations, doing like mindful breathing, started to produce chemical shifts in my brain and my body, which then was the kind of path up and out. And so I didn't take medication. And if that's right for someone, of course, by all means. But for me, I knew that I had to address what was actually going on, that the medication would just be a blanket. And so for me, I just was like, I can't do that. I have to figure this out. So 180, business has increased exponentially, bought a beautiful home. We travel. We're going to buy a second home in a foreign country. I've been running retreats around the world, but those are increasing in frequency. So it's like my internal well-being, like I'm seeing the results of my work out here. Like I do the work and I meditate and I keep it clean and right and sort it out on the wherever I need to sort it out. And then this reflects back to me the efforts. So 180 is, yeah, there's a sense of dominion or empowerment that if something comes up, I'm very capable of assessing it and working through it and understanding it and just not being a victim to it, which I think is probably one of the bigger successes. I mean, beyond like financial success and career and stuff like that, it's having the resources to be able to process. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that is incredible. That is really just so amazing that it's only been a year. I didn't appreciate that it was only a year that
It's only been a
you
year.
started doing this, and it's made such an impact. And what was it, do you think, about that book and going on this journey
Mm.
that has created such an impact?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think the book specifically showed me through quantum physics, and this is how Dr. Joe does it, just how much more is possible, how
Mm.
much more is available beyond what we can see, beyond what we think. And so I just, again, another experiment. I was like, well, let me just try this out. If I try this, what can happen? And so I think it's being a total science nerd, the quantum physics element, and how is it you can use the mind to affect and create the future and the life that you really, really, really want, and to deepen into trust that it's totally possible. And so overcoming alcohol, my need to drink to process my emotions, overcoming anxiety and depression, overcoming just my own self and limitations, that was the biggest gift I think I got from the book, was that we are fully capable. We might need better tools or we might need better support. And, I'm curious to hear from you, the work and the retreats that you do with women. It sounds like that's like you help provide that to people as an alternative to drinking. And so it's just, there's so much more possible than what we think or what we know. And if it's just about accessing better tools or better community or better support, then like that's the easy part. You know what I mean? The hard part is doing the work. The easy part is knowing that there's more available for us to support long-term health and well-being. So yeah, a couple nuggets from the dark night of the soul, but I think those were the biggest ones.
Yeah, yeah. I think that everyone has different approaches and different things that they end up sort of gravitating towards when they stop drinking. But I think meditation and breath work are just so
Mm-hmm.
key. And so I've been doing yoga since I stopped. Well, I stopped in November 2020, and
Oh wow. Yeah.
yeah, so it's nearly 5 years.
Oh wow.
And I discovered, well, obviously I've always known about yoga, but I was the person who would sit in those yoga classes and be laughing, couldn't sit still, would look around thinking, what the hell's everyone doing? How are they all sort of, it just wasn't, I just didn't get it. I just couldn't do it. And I did a 30-day challenge in the January 2021, and I've pretty much done yoga every day since. And so that has been my, breath work, stretching, yoga, the whole sort of thing has been my thing. And then I also started running. I did a 10K program in February 2021,
Oh,
having not run
wow.
since school. So for 25 years, I probably hadn't run prior to that. And I've run 2 marathons since then as well. So the combination of yoga and running for me, and I do think running, you can get into a meditative state when you are doing those sort of
Mm-hmm.
distances as well, in order to just keep going. I absolutely love that, the concept of what we can do naturally within
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. And then also it's about building healthier habits and routines, daily morning and evening routines, to help you, on that journey. So they're the types of things that I help people understand and build
Mm-hmm.
on. But then obviously being able to process and manage emotions without a substance or without turning to something
Mm-hmm.
else. And just understanding what their new identity is and how to live into that, and what the purpose behind all of that is, as well as really thinking about what they're called to do now that alcohol's not in the picture, because you suddenly have all this time on your hands, you have all this
Mm-hmm.
energy, you suddenly have this
Vitality.
space and clarity. Yeah, exactly, vitality. You're just like on this. So when you say it's been a year, I remember my first year, I was just like all the things, just go go go, let's do, and it is amazing how much you can achieve in that first year. And so a lot of people say to me, well, when you get to sort of year 4, year 5, is that still there? And I think you up level so much in those
Mm-hmm.
that first year or two, that then it might feel like you're plateauing, but you're actually still moving up, but you are maybe doing it in not as high paced fast speed, because you have literally gone from being in a world of myrrh, a bit of a
Mm-hmm.
grayness, to seeing everything in technicolor and just like, yeah, let's go,
I
and
love
it's
it.
like, wow. So absolutely get that you've done all of that in a year, because it's an incredible feeling. And
It is.
if you can really let go and find something that works for you, you can conquer the world. So
So maybe I have a question for you. So in your year or the time since then, do you sometimes find that you have so much energy, it's almost hard to, like, do you have this experience where you're just like, I have I have so much energy, I don't know what to do with this.
mm,
Like, is that an experience that you've
I
had
definitely
by
felt like that in the first couple of years. I was like, I mean, if I think about everything I've achieved since
Mhm.
stopping drinking, which is relatively, in 5 years, you think about what you can do in 5 years normally, or what people most people tend to do in 5 years. It's not very much. I certainly feel like I've probably done a lot more than most in 5 years. And actually,
Mhm.
it's been less than, it's probably in the first 2 or 3 years. So yeah, absolutely. I think you've got a lot more energy. I think you suddenly want to use it wisely. You suddenly realize
Mhm.
that we've only got one precious life. And actually you're a lot more conscious of what you can do, and you also want to give back as well. I don't know about you, but
Mhm.
when you discover the limitless pill that is not drinking, you want to then share that with everyone. And so you want to
Absolutely.
give, you want to share your light, and you want to help people realize that actually, if you can ditch this one thing, it's going to lead to everything. And it feels like it's such an well, it's obviously significant for a lot of people. A lot of people find it really hard to do and don't understand why people choose to not drink, whatever. But I think if you can get rid of that thought and say, listen, I'm just going to give myself a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day break from this, and really lean into
Mhm.
it and expand my vision, expand my view, and work out where I am after that, your life can just open up exponentially. So I'm
I
all
love
about
it.
it. I'm all about it. And I think it does absolutely give you this lease of life that you probably have never had before as an adult.
I would fully agree. And it's, I mean, I'm curious what you think. there are times where it's not always easy, like when you have to face your emotions and process whatever and have the like alcohol sometimes can be that crutch that just makes challenging things a little more easy. But when you remove that, you remove the crutch, sometimes processing the challenges is quite challenging, but it builds resilience and it builds tenacity. It builds this character in us that I think is just more authentic and more real. So I'm not sure if you've had that experience or if you've seen that with your clients, but this, it's change is inconvenient, and removing crutches can be inconvenient, but what's possible on the other side is it can be extraordinary. Everything we're talking, the vitality and the energy and purpose and just wanting to go after it and have this life because you're just not numbed out and tired and hungover and chemically off and emotionally off. And I don't know. I just think it's again, I just like to do these weird experiments. Like actually when I started before COVID, when I did that, I had a stretch where there was no sugar, no alcohol. I was like, I'm just going to go for a week and see how I feel. I felt extraordinary, like could not believe just my skin and my sleep. And I'm sure you see this with your clients all the time, just how the physical body responds to not drinking is extraordinary.
Yeah, and you make a really excellent point. Life is still lively, right? Life, it doesn't mean that everything is rainbow and skittles. You still have to go through life, and it does have ups and downs, but I think if you can do this one thing, you're proving to yourself so much, because what I think a lot of people try to do is they try to moderate. So a lot of people know that they're maybe drinking too much or they don't want to drink as much, and they think, okay, I'm going to moderate. And so they set all these rules and they say, okay, well, on a Monday to Thursday, I'm not going to drink. Thursday, I'll have one glass because it's the night we go out with my colleagues. And then Friday is, Friday's date night. So we'll have a couple of glasses there just to sort of mesh with my husband and get into that routine, or my partner, whatever. And then, it's the weekend, Saturday's here, we're meeting up with some friends. Let's, so maybe I'll have one glass then. And, you have all these rules. And actually, by the end of the week, you haven't met any of those rules. And what you don't appreciate is actually you're chipping away at your self-esteem when you do that. When you can't keep promises to yourself, your whole self-esteem is actually beginning to get a bit unraveled.
That gave me goosebumps. Absolutely. It's like when you make those promises with yourself and then don't keep them.
Yeah.
That can be super corrosive, and it does. Yeah, that absolutely. It chips away at self-worth, integrity.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, what's easier, that experience that you just presented, where it's like, oh, and no shame, like humans are funny creatures, but it's like, oh, I'm just going to have a couple drinks here and there. And then come Sunday, you're having to kind of rebuild up your sense of worth or purpose, kind of recover from that. Or is it easier to just stay true on the path of like, why is alcohol not in your life? And so, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that a lot of people will seem to think that's an easier option. And for me, it just isn't. For my clients, it isn't.
Right.
It's something they've tried and it's not worked. And so I do think by actually stopping drinking, starting to keep those promises to yourself, as you mentioned, it builds your resilience. It helps you realize, actually, if I can do this one thing, what else can I do? And you can also start to see the things that have been holding you back a bit more clearly, limiting beliefs, fears, etc., and then start to work through that discomfort, because on the other side of your comfort zone, everything's waiting for you. And I think that's a really good segue into what you do as a coach, Ashley, in terms of your NLP and everything else. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So what I do and have been doing for I can't, it's almost been 20 years. It's crazy. I'm like, I'm not even old enough. I mean, I started when I was 29 and it's been a very long journey, but I mean, for me, it's helping clients access to have positive, lasting change and how the method or technology. I am a total science nerd, so I lean heavily on neuroscience, neurolinguistic programming, like understanding how the brain works, the conscious and the subconscious mind, how the body works, and things like that. So, in terms of overcoming alcohol or anything that may not be the healthiest thing, it's we human beings are really victims to our subconscious programming, which is 95% of our brain's power. 5% is conscious. And so, in terms of how I work, it's let's just go for the 95% and work in that territory so that positive change can be easier. And dare I say that, more enjoyable because you're not having to use willpower to try so hard. Like, oh, I just want to be successful and I want to be happy and I want to be healthy and I want to stick to this path. It's like, so you can think of it, and this is again more technology, more the strategy. It's our brains are just like a smartphone, a telephone. It doesn't update on its own. And so if there's some outdated wiring or beliefs of I can't have it, I'll never do it, it will never work. I mean, fill in the blankets. We just need to kind of revise and update some of the code that's running in the brain so that I can just have a better and easier experience and not have to work so hard because we're working with that 95%. So that's a lengthy explanation as to the kind of the technology or the process of how I work, but ultimately it's helping clients, people, men and women around the world, success-minded people whom like you've ticked the boxes, but there's something missing. You've got the family, you've got the career, like something is missing. And it's usually not just the next thing. Like there needs to be a kind of timeout to assess like what is missing. And so I sometimes will say we're going for like the one domino. Like what is the one thing that will have the most positive impact on your life? Is it a sense of self-worth? Is it a sense of self-love and respect? Is it a new relationship? It doesn't matter what it is, but it's that one domino that then can, kind of tip over everything else. So how that works, I work privately with clients. I do small group coaching. I run retreats. Retreats are actually, I think, my favorite. And I know you run retreats around the world, but the magic that can happen when you bring people together with a common purpose or intention and to build community and friendship and connection, like we've lost that. And so, yeah, I work privately, small groups. I do retreats, and please don't think that if you come to a retreat, like I don't ask anyone to meditate. If you meditate, that's fantastic. But I want, there's a lot that can happen in the world of meditation when you close your eyes. It's how you get to know yourself. It's how you get to know what doesn't work and what needs revision. But I should say that in that, if I normally don't make people meditate if they're a client unless they're already meditating. Then I'm like, let's go. We're going to go further faster. Does that make sense? So meditation is so much about what I do. It's a very personal practice, but it's not a requirement. It does help tremendously when you can work your mind to create the best outcome in life. Again, that 95% of the brain is just dormant power. And meditation is one way to really start using it. And it's like a snake that's just been dormant for a really long time. So I know I'm saying a lot, but it's helping people achieve lasting positive change so that you really don't have to work so hard. The brain starts to work for you unconsciously. Just you're like, wow, that's different. I didn't have to actually do anything. That's really different. So it's kind of cool. It's like there's like a secret back door into the brain, and it's if you know how to access it, buckle up, because the change that's possible is, I mean, I've seen clients do extraordinary things time and time. It's like You just give a couple key tools, just a couple things, and support. It's like you know what I mean? So it's really fun work. Almost 18 years. So it's been a process.
Mm. Yeah, it's amazing how powerful our subconscious mind is and how few people know how to use it in the right way and think that it's the conscious mind that's running everything. But ultimately, we wake up every day probably with the same
Mm-hmm.
thoughts. 80% of our thoughts, well, probably 90% of our thoughts are the same.
Mm-hmm.
80% tend to be negative thoughts that just are on repeat. So it's how do you then shift those
Mm-hmm.
to the more positive thoughts? And NLP is very powerful in that sense. And just reprogramming the subconscious mind, which is what we both do. So it just always amazes me how, when I work with clients, and I'm sure you've seen the same thing, the shift that happens and that aha that happens, and they're like, oh my goodness, I didn't even think that was something
Absolutely.
I was aware of, the whole model of reality and just what people think is real when it really necessarily
Is
isn't,
not.
so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I love that you do that work. And in terms of, you talked about meditation and not forcing that on anyone, but people think about meditation in a lot of people think about meditation as sitting silently
Mm.
for hours on end, and that's, if they're not doing that, they're not doing it properly. But maybe for someone who's listening and thinking, I want to maybe start dabbling in this whole
Yeah.
meditation thing, what would be your maybe 3 tips for them to get started?
I would say put aside any preconceived ideas as to what meditation is. It can be walking, it can be, I meditate, most of my meditation actually happens when I'm moving, walking, driving, cleaning, doing errands. So it can be a very lived experience. You do not have to sit in a cave quiet for 8 hours a day. I think that's kind of the old school way. Maybe the new school way is it's a very lived and embodied practice. So number one is, if you've never meditated, you're actually the perfect student, because you're not coming in with preconceived ideas as to what it is or should be. Am I doing it wrong? Am I doing it right? I suck. My mind won't stop. You know what I mean? Like, put aside any of that. I would say the second thing is, and this is just maybe more of a personal preference, is if you are interested in meditation, it could be interesting to start to understand some of the science behind it, how meditation, from a science, again, this is just a personal thing, but if I understand why I'm doing it and science says so, I'm going to be way more committed when my monkey mind kicks up. So maybe start to investigate or learn what is meditation beyond needing to sit in a cave and quiet for 8 hours a day. Like, that's just not realistic for most people. And then I would say the third thing, meditation is a way for us to know ourselves. It is a way for us to change ourselves. And so maybe consider, you know, some of the things that may not be working super great, be it a belief or a thought or a situation, a relationship with alcohol, and start to consider what else might be possible, whether it's through meditation, whatever the tool is. But kind of like, if I ask you the question, like, what would you like? How would you answer that? And can meditation be something that supports the creation of the best outcome in life? It's about how to create the future by using so many of the tools that are just basically the head and the heart, really, the two most powerful machines. And we haven't even talked about this, but so yeah, I think the third thing is really start to feel into, like, what is the future and what is the best outcome that you want for yourself, and to know, or to start to believe that it actually can be possible. And meditation is just one of the tools that can really accelerate. And two, I mean, what meditation can do in terms of brain and heart coherence, whoa. Like, that's a whole other conversation. But these two very powerful machines oftentimes work in opposition. My mind, I want to do this, I should do this, doesn't feel right. doesn't feel right. Like, how is it we get the two machines synced up or in coherence with each other? And there's a lot of science around heart and brain coherence. So, I mean, that could be the fourth thing is if you are someone that has the experience of, oh, I think I should do this, but it doesn't feel right, or there's just kind of this inner turmoil, meditation can absolutely help bring order between the two machines. And from that place of coherence or rapport, holy smokes, so much is available. So much more is available. Most of the information comes from our heart. 80% of our information and knowing actually comes from here. It doesn't come from here. And so the more that we're in tune with the heart and work to get in a coherent state, that feeds the brain 80% information. So I think it's a really powerful way to be in the world. You're not in opposition, you're actually in order. So that was a very long answer. But I would say I think the answer is there for someone if that's good for them. So
yeah, and it's ultimately being open to being curious, isn't it, and experimenting, as you've talked a lot about during this this episode. I think it's really just being open to curiosity, and again asking questions and seeing what comes as well. And I do a lot of work in human design, and again, we know that the mind doesn't have any of the answers. It's all in the body. And so again, I think a lot of people seem to think that it's all in the obviously you get your ideas and your thoughts and your processing, but really the true answers are in your body, using different parts of your body depending on your strategy and authority. But it's fascinating that we all can get so caught up with our minds, don't we? And it overrides things. But actually, what does your heart say? What does your gut say? What is that inner knowing saying to you? That if you think back to that before the mind started whizzing and whirling, you have the answer. And you, as you say, through meditation and other things, it comes more easily. And it's maybe, it probably is just a bit quicker than if you don't do things like that on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
We have access to it. Yeah. So anything else, Ashley, that we want to touch on?
No, I think that covers a lot of it. I would say if whoever's listening, and this is just a personal mission, that I know I've said this probably multiple times in this conversation, but there's so much more available. And so if you're in a place, be it, you've got a job change or a relationship situation, or you're struggling with quitting drinking so that you can feel better, like whatever challenge that is currently up for you is a huge opportunity for growth and healing. And I just kind of want to give love to it. Takes so much courage to change, and it's totally inconvenient, and most people don't do it. Most people don't. And so I think if you're listening to this and you're on the precipice of some really big change, I would just say personally, like, I'm cheering you on. It's very courageous work and well done. So if this conversation helps someone take that next step so that they can have the best outcome in life and feel purposeful or whatever, pick your adjective, then I hope this conversation has been useful. And I would think it's fair to say, like, we're cheering you on. Change is inconvenient, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it. And I'm sure you see this all the time with your clients, like the change. Yeah.
And once they get to the other side, it's so exciting. It's just everything you want is on the other side of your comfort zone, on the other side of fear, on the other side of change. And and you just have to go through it and trust the process, and you get there. And it's amazing. So thank you for that, and thank you for being on the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. So with all my episodes, I like to end with the one question: what does thriving alcohol free mean to you, Ashley?
Gives me goosebumps. It means trusting myself enough that I can figure it out without alcohol. I can figure it out. I've got the resources, I've got I am resourceful and I am capable, and it's so much better figuring it out in a sober manner. It's so much better. So that's what it means to me, is trusting myself that I can figure it out and I don't need crutches. I don't need it. It's actually distracting. Stop.
That's amazing. That is amazing. And it's an art, really, isn't it? Because we do generally, as adults, have something that we lean on. And actually, when people stop drinking, they may turn to sugar, they may turn to shopping, they turn to other things, exercise, probably extreme exercise, lots of other things. And so I think as humans, we tend to find something that we can distract ourselves with, or we can use as a coping mechanism. But if you can get to the point where you've got much healthier habits and you're doing things in a way that works for you, such as meditation and other things, then that it's a real art. And I think what you have done and how you've grown so much in just 1 year, I can't wait to see what happens in the next 5. So it just goes to show how taking this one thing out does change and shift everything. So if people want to get in touch with you, Ashley, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Thank you so much. You're welcome to visit my website, ashleypaquin.com. That cute website has been in existence for it's changed, but it's been alive for 17 years. So I've been doing this for quite some time. But ashleypaquin.com. I have a YouTube channel. I'm not too much on Instagram, but I like to talk to a lot of people on YouTube. You can find that link on the website too. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you ever so much for being a guest on the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. And I look forward to hearing what you get up to next. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone who's listening. Well done on your journey.
Thank you so much for listening to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe so you get alerted every time I drop a new episode. I'd love it if you could rate, review, and share this episode. Feel free to tag me on Instagram at Thrive Alcohol Free and follow me for daily tips. If you would like to work with me, I offer one-to-one coaching sessions and have my signature Thrive Alcohol Free Society group coaching program. If you're not yet ready for coaching, I also have a self-paced online course, which is a companion to my book, A Cocktail of Clarity. All the links are in the show notes. I will see you in the next episode. Have a wonderful week. Take care.